Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's guest, but as always, we're going to give our sponsors a shout out. Now, come on, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies I used as an AD. They're all great companies. So take a listen to these shout outs. Only take 3 minutes. Then listen to our interview and then go and visit these sponsors. I'm telling you, you're going to be glad you did. Here we go. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. They're also a great way to share your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website, once again, is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class social media content to help celebrate your athletes and programs. Whether it's a social media post to highlight a big victory or an entire social media newsletter to share all the great things your program's doing, Gipper is going to help you get that up there. In fact, it's so easy, even I can do it. Go to Gipper.com to get started. We want to say thanks to Home Campus. Now, Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling or rosters, results. Their athlete eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. You need to go to homecampus.com to get started. That's it, homecampus.com. Like I say, you're going to be glad you did. We want to thank Ohio University and their online master's in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's at Ohio University. It was a great experience. It's totally online, very affordable, just 20 months. And you also earn 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge while you're earning your master's. To get started, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA. We want to thank Huddle for their support. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Join the 8 million users. Find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com, and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. You heard me say before, our indoor score table from Sideline was a game changer. Well, their video boards are too. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We'd like to thank Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. We also want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more, but I will. Go to hometownticketing.com. Whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is here to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. And we'd like to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to gripe. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group so you can hear the concerns and, remedy their issues. But Athletic Surveys is also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having all of that positive feedback, all of that data is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent, or maybe your principal, or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to Indiana today, and we're going to be visiting with Aimee Harvey. Aimee is a registered athletic administrator, and she's the athletic director at Danville High School. Of course, that's in Danville, Indiana. Um, we've had this scheduled for a while, but I'm glad we were finally able to get you on. For our listeners, we're recording this on December 20th, so I know a lot of us are right back from the NADC. Hopefully, you and your school district are on break already, or at least in final exams. But Aimee Harvey, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Well, you and I were chatting before the show. It's still a busy
hmm
time. Let's go ahead and jump right in. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that
hmm
quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. Maybe take us up through your own college days, and then we'll take a break.
Okay.
But what's the Aimee Harvey origin story?
Well, I was born in Southern Indiana in Bedford. If you are an Indiana, the state of Indiana basketball fan or an Indiana University fan, you are probably familiar with Bedford because Damon Bailey was a Bedford basketball player, and so he's kind of put Bedford on the map. But when I was 4, my dad, mom, and I moved to Michigan. So I spent most of my growing up years in Michigan. But you can tell I took my love of IU with me. And so tonight is the Notre Dame IU game.
Oh
So
yeah.
go Hoosiers. Um, so moved to Michigan. My story is probably a little different because I growing up, I played intramural or rec sports, but more than that, played at recess. I ended up at an elementary school where every recess was a baseball game, girls and boys. Um, and coming from a family that's IU fans, I grew up as a sports enthusiast. I went to a small private high school, so we didn't have sports. We didn't have extracurricular sports as far as competing with other schools, but we did have intramurals. And so I participated in the intramurals for my school. We did everything from field hockey, volleyball, basketball. Um, so, I mean, just was involved in a variety of things, but never anything at the interscholastic competitive level. Um, so that I think makes me probably a little bit different than a lot of my colleagues that are athletic directors. I think for the most part, they participated in sports, interscholastic sports. But I grew up with that love of athletics. And so when I was getting ready to go to college, of course, I chose to come back to IU. And my plan was to become a sports broadcaster just because of my love of athletics. Um, I ended up going a different route and getting my teaching degree, but that love of sports had always stuck around. And so I had been an assistant principal here. Well, and I guess I'm getting a little ahead of your questions there. So maybe I should give you a chance to jump in if you've got any questions for me at that point.
No, well, again, I love hearing the stories. That's one of the reasons we do the podcast. I just love hearing the stories. The intramural experience.
Mhm.
I was at a big public high school, and we still had, in addition to all the varsity sports, we still had intramural games. And I remember those as being highly competitive, and we had
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
fun. What was your go-to game? You knew that you were the queen of the court in what were your intramural games?
I don't know that I would say I was necessarily queen of the court, but my preference was definitely basketball. I don't know if that's because I'm a Hoosier, or just, if that's the one I felt the most skilled in, but that was definitely my go-to. And it was what we would play if we were just, had free time and, I I wanted to be on the basketball court if I had some free time or watching other people play basketball.
Right. Again, for listeners that are listening to this, Amy's got her, bright red, Indiana pullover on. Let's talk about that. You went to IU. Explain to the listeners who are not Indiana natives, I guess the passion, the whole, I mean, I'm a lot older than you. So when I was in high school, it was Bobby Knight and the
Oh
Hoosiers.
yeah.
And again, I cheered for them. I thought that was really cool. Um, Obviously, the movie Hoosiers goes further back. How, from your perspective, why is Indiana, I guess, and I think this, and even, Larry Bird and all of that.
Hmm.
How is Indiana the Mecca, I guess, for let's say all things basketball?
Honestly, I think we're a Midwestern state, and so we have that. A lot of our towns still have that small town feel. Certainly, Danville has that small town feel. And I think that basketball was just the thing that allowed a community to kind of rally around either the high school team, and certainly being born in Bedford, which is just about 20 miles down the road from Bloomington. IU was a natural fit. Now, I did have family members who rooted for Kentucky. Sometimes they didn't get invited to the holidays, but we won't talk about that now. Um, but honestly, growing up, uh, there was not this Purdue IU rivalry at that point in time. And so it was the Kentucky fans. We did not want anything to do with them. Um, but I do think I think it's that small town community. Everybody is an IU fan. Everyone in Bedford was a Bedford fan. Everyone in Danville is a Danville fan. And I think that is just a shared, um, commonality amongst the towns in Indiana. And so I think, they say in 49 states it's basketball, but in Indiana it's a whole different thing. And so I think, that's part of what brings everybody together around that sport.
No, that's so cool. Jumping ahead or jumping back into your college days, you talked about, you know, you you spent some time as a principal. Um,
Mhm.
can you think of a moment back during your undergrad training? Was there a class? Was there a teacher? Was there an internship that just kind of really made you think, hey, this is what I want to do, or this is what I'm going to do?
As Do you mean as far as going into education?
Right.
Yeah. Well, so I also like to joke that I got into teaching for all the wrong reasons because I really had no clue what teaching was all about. I believed, as a lot of people outside of education, I naively believe that you work for 9 months and you get 3 months off. I mean, really, it's more like you work 12 months and you're lucky if you get 3 weeks off,
Hmm.
because you're always doing something for your classroom or for your school. Um, but the good thing was that when I went to school for it, I had 2 days off. I had classes 3 days a week, and I had 2 days off. So I decided it would probably make sense to do substitute teaching during those days off. And what I found was that I really enjoyed substitute teaching. I think if you know people who substitute teach, most of them would not say that they love it. It's flexible and all of that, but I mean, it's not an easy gig, that's for sure. To go into a classroom with a bunch of kids that you don't know and they kind of know you don't really know what's going on. That's not always the perfect combination. But for me, I knew right away that this was something I was going to enjoy. I also knew right away that elementary was not going to be my thing. I loved the kids. I mean, they're a joy, and I love every year we do a senior walkthrough at the end of the year, and I always go with, and I love seeing the elementary kids see these seniors walk through in their caps and gowns, and it's a really fun experience. But I knew that I didn't want somebody so dependent on me from start to finish, and so I was drawn towards secondary. And so that's really how I knew that this was going to be the best fit for me.
Oh, I'm right with you on there. I actually, right out of college, I substitute taught for almost 2 years, waiting for that
Hmm.
first full-time job. But absolutely, I would take any subject, any level, except elementary, because you are always on. There's no
Yes.
break. Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of breaks, let's go and take one. We're visiting today with Aimee Harvey. She's a registered athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics at Danville High School. That's in Danville, Indiana. We're going to come back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. They're also a great way to showcase your school's unique history and brag a little bit about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. We also want to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. Your students are on social media, and if they're not seeing content that celebrates their accomplishments and promotes your program, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com. It's used and trusted by over 20,000 high schools and college programs across the country. It's professional graphic design made simple, whether it's a social media post, celebrating a big win, or an entire newsletter letting your stakeholders know all the great things you're doing. Gipper's going to help you get it done. Go to Gipper.com to find out more information. That's Gipper.com.
Hey, Jake, I loved hearing you promoting Gipper because that's actually something that, you asked me to think about some tips for new ADs. Gipper is definitely one that I would recommend because I know our kids are on social media. I want to meet them there on the platforms that they choose, but trying to do that is not super easy. But it is with Gipper, makes it so much easier. And so that is a huge tip that I would give any new AD.
Well, thanks so much for sharing that. What's some of the feedback you've gotten, maybe from kids or parents, people in the community about a certain Gipper post that you made?
Um, well, I always get a ton of likes and shares whenever I put something on social media using Gipper. Really, the biggest thing for me was early on trying to ensure that I got even coverage for all of our programs, which was very important, but not always easy to do. Because it can be difficult to try to jazz up some score reports and that kind of thing. But Gipper made that part easy. Whether it's just announcing what the results were from your contest the day before, or if you're wanting to put pictures on social media for signing days and stuff like that, all those templates, they work so well and they look professional. And so it's really more that I don't get complaints about any group not getting coverage because I'm able to make sure that I get coverage of everybody because Gipper makes it so easy.
No, and that's a great point, and you're absolutely right. It is so easy to do, as I like to say. It's so easy, even I can do it. Thanks for sharing that. That's very cool. And we'll let you give Gipper a shout out in the toolbox segment too. Uh, for our listeners, we're visiting today with Aimee Harvey. She's the athletic director, Danville High School, Danville, Indiana. Aimee, you kind of took us up through your Indiana University days. We love to hear about the journey that we all take, post college that leads us to that dream job. I know you're at your dream job right now. What were some of the stops for you along the way in your journey as an AD?
Okay, yeah. So when I graduated with my teaching degree, I got a job at Covenant Christian, which is a high school just down the road from us here in the same county that we are in. So I taught there for a year. I was an English teacher, and that was great. It was a great experience. I really enjoyed it. What I figured out at that point was I was a little too close in age to my students. And so sometimes they maybe had a little bit of difficulty in taking me as seriously as they needed to. And so I transitioned to teaching middle school in Brownsburg, which is another community in our county, and spent 14 years in Brownsburg as an English teacher. The first 10 of those were the first 10 of those were at the middle school level. I loved middle school. People would say, I don't know how people teach middle school. But I loved it. But I knew pretty early on that I wanted to go beyond the classroom, and so I got my admin degree. And once I finished that, my middle school principal encouraged me. We had an opening at our high school in Brownsburg, and she encouraged me to give that a shot because she knew it would make me a more well-rounded administrator. So I did that, went to the high school. I spent 4 years there. The last three, I was in an administrative role within the English department, and I loved all of that. I know it's kind of weird. I loved being an English teacher. I loved trying to get kids to think that English wasn't the worst class that they had to take. Um, but I also, in getting into that curriculum-based administrative role, I missed the kids. At that point, I was only teaching one class, and then the rest of the time I was working with teachers. And I really, that's when it was crystal clear to me that having contact with students is what makes me tick. And so then I transitioned here to Danville and took an assistant principal position. And I served in that role for 6 years. That was primarily attendance, discipline. But one of the things I enjoyed the most was attending our athletic events. And so, you expect to attend a certain amount of those as part of being an assistant principal. But I found myself coming to events even that I wasn't necessarily assigned to be at just because I really enjoyed it. My kids were in elementary and middle school at that time. They wanted to come to the games anyway, and so it was kind of a win-win at that point. And so I spent 6 years in that role before making the leap to the athletic director position.
I want to hear more about your athletic experience, but as an AP, and you're at the games, and you've already shared with our listeners, you're a fan. You enjoy being there. Can you think of something? I want to phrase this correctly because these are my words, not yours. Can you think of something that as you were watching these games and the events, and you're watching as an administrator, can you think of something that you said, hey, they're doing that pretty good, but I think we could do it better? Anything stick out to you from that experience?
I think that for me, I loved our students being involved and supportive of our teams. I came from Brownsburg, which is a larger district. And Brownsburg always had an amazing student section. Our local TV stations will have competitions between student sections, and Brownsburg was always part of that competition. And so when I came here, I was glad to see that student support. Obviously, it's on a smaller level. We're a smaller school. The one thing that I really wanted was to see our kids positively supporting our teams and not focusing as much on negative toward the opposing teams. And I think we can get caught up in that a lot. Hey, and I'm just as guilty. I love a good Purdue put down as much as anybody. But it's a lot more fun to me to support my team rather than to celebrate another team's downfall. And so that's something that I really try to encourage with our students in our student section. It's called the mob, which I don't know that necessarily sends a positive message, but it's been that for years. And so, that's something I really try to promote with them, is to focus on positively supporting our team. And hey, if there's a call made, you're going to boo. That's fine. If somebody shoots an air ball, you're going to chant air ball. That's all to me in the spirit of the competition. But beyond that, our focus should be on positively supporting our team, and helping them to know that we are there because we care about them, and we want to watch them perform on the court or on the field.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. Promoting, sportsmanship, that's a lot of things. That's competing hard. That's, being respectful to your opponent, but at the same time,
Absolutely.
you're going nose to nose. Um, and that's interesting. In discussion, you get 10 athletic directors together. Sometimes you're going to have 10 different opinions. Um, and full disclosure, I was a high school basketball official for many years. I just stepped down last year, and nothing negative. I love my
Mhm.
time. I love the give and take with coaches and things like that. But getting back to 80s and sportsmanship, uh, they'll say, "Oh, you shouldn't boo a call." I go, I don't know. As long as you're not, yelling, epithets at the person. I mean, that's,
Right.
hey, it's a fan experience. And it'll eventually, and they'll talk about airball. I'm fine with maybe, one or maybe two airball chants. It's the going on for 90 seconds. It's probably a little extreme. Um,
Yeah.
but here's my question for you, Aimee, on sportsmanship. Close game, and this is basketball related. Close game. The gym's packed, rivalry game, back and forth. There's 3 seconds left on the clock, and player shooting a free throw. It's 1-1. Okay. Um, what's your philosophy on gym noise? Okay. Is it supposed to be quiet and respectful, like it's the Masters golf tournament, or are you making as much noise as you can? Okay.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that when I'm in my seat at an IU game, I'm making as much noise as I can for the other team, and I'm being completely quiet when my team is shooting.
Right.
No, in all honesty, I think for our high school level athletes, um, really the more noise, the better. Because it kind of takes the pressure off of them a little bit. They already know all eyes are on them, but when it's silent, it is definitely a spotlight on you. And I feel like, as long as both teams are supporting their player or whatever, that noise to me takes a little bit of the pressure off of the player who's shooting. And so I'm a bring on the noise type of kid
Right.
or type of person.
And I'm right there with you. We're not going to be saying to, like, if the opponent is shooting, hey, 25, you suck.
Right.
We're not going to do that. Okay. But just that
Hmm.
noise. And I've been in a number of games where the home team player, and usually the home team is going to be quiet. That player's the free throw, and he's, trying to, pump up the crowd. He wants that
Yeah.
noise, or she wants
Right.
that noise, which is cool to see. All right,
Yes.
I want to come to one of your games. I want to experience that Danville excitement. Let's take
Yes.
another, let's take another quick break. We're visiting today again with Aimee Harvey. We're coming back with more, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is one of those platforms you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, results, communication. Their athletic eligibility and clearance platform alone is worth the price. To get signed up, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And while you're earning your master's degree, you're also completing 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. To get more information, just go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. And we'd like to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a huddle school, and our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos, and our parents loved the streaming, but there is so much more. Go to huddle.com, join the 8 million users, and turn your school into a huddle school. That's huddle.com.
You keep stealing the tools out of my toolbox because Huddle would be one of those that I also would recommend. They have made my life so easy when it comes to live streaming, and helping to put together clips for our athletes, especially if they're wanting to play at the next level. We've got it for, they've recently added softball and baseball, and they're developing those, and we've gotten our coaches involved with that. So they have really helped to take some of our programs that rely on them and have been for years to the next level. And I know that that's going to be the case for our baseball and softball as those coaches learn how to use the program and help make their teams better as a result.
Well, I'm really glad you mentioned that, the idea of the videos, and we all think about helping our student athletes get to that next
Mhm.
level. And I always tell the folks at Huddle, hey, it's not just about that 6% that's going on to play at college. The other 94%, they can create their highlight videos that they're going to have with them as a
Absolutely.
reminder of their high school experiences for the rest of their life. So very cool.
Absolutely.
Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing that. I'm
Yep.
I'm I'm going to put you in touch with my huddle people because they're always looking for ADs that can articulate their huddle experience. Boy, you just knocked it out of the park. All right, let's get back to your interview for our listeners. Aimee Harvey is our guest today. She's a registered athletic administrator. Aimee, you shared how you started your career out. Well, you were a teacher, still an educator, obviously, but you were an assistant principal, and then you became the athletic director. How did that all happen? How'd you end up coming over to, sometimes we say, the dark side of athletic administration?
Well, I can tell you that it had been, something that I kind of had in the back of my mind just because I really enjoyed being at athletic events and that kind of thing. I knew just because this is how education is that there was a whole lot more to it than just being at events and making sure that those go smoothly. And so it hadn't really been a huge thing on my radar, but I was finishing up my 6th year of being assistant principal. And while I loved that and all of the experience I was getting from that, I was feeling like, okay, might be time for a change. Or I could see myself, experiencing something different. Right about that time, my son was a freshman here at Danville, and I have twins, a boy and a girl. They were in middle school at the time. He has since gone on to Indiana. The oldest is at Indiana University now, and the twins are seniors, and I don't know where the time has gone, but um, I knew I wanted to stay in Danville. And when this job came open, I was like, well, I think maybe I would like to give that a shot. I was good friends with our athletic director prior to me. And so I had seen a little bit of what he put into it. But I can tell you one thing is for sure, I would never have probably gone out looking for an athletic director job. And so it was perfect timing, perfect location. Some of the things that happened or that were able to happen because I was familiar with the district, familiar with the staff, the students, the community. Um, those are what helped me successfully, I hope, make the transition to athletic director that I wouldn't have had in a new district. And so when you're transitioning into a role that you don't have any experience in, um, if you don't have knowledge of students, community members, coaches, all of that stuff, I mean, it was like drinking from a fire hose to me. So I can't imagine if I had tried to take this on in a brand new district where I didn't already have those huge pieces of support. So it really was right time and right place, because I don't think I would have even considered it had it not had all of those pieces. Um, and this was in 2020. So ironically, the good thing about the COVID uh, impact on athletics that it had at that time was it was a new experience for everybody. Even
Mhm.
the athletic directors that had been doing it for 20 years were trying to figure out how we were going to do it with the restrictions that COVID had put on us. So I wasn't the only one asking questions at that point, and that helped me learn without having to be the person that was always asking the question.
Boy, you bring up two really great points. The relationship component. You were already there. They knew you. They didn't know you as an AD. I'm sure there were some moments that they were, testing you. But again, that coming in at COVID, that everybody is reacting and trying to figure out what they're going to do. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I can see how that would have made your entry into being an AD a little bit easier. I got a couple questions. I'm not going to ambush you here, but um, we use the expression a lot. You don't know what you don't know. You'd been at Danville for a long time. You knew the coaches as an administrator. You knew the setup of the school, all that. What were some things that you found out you didn't know about being an athletic director?
Well, let me narrow that down from about a million to a couple. I think that some of the pieces of it that were probably the I had the most learning to do was in managing my own budget. There's a lot of moving pieces in athletics, um, depending on how you have your budget set up and trying to keep an eye on all of that. You've got POs landing on your desk every day of things that need to be paid for, and making sure you're going to have enough money, and that everybody's getting what they need, and that you're allocating all of resources appropriately, and making sure that everyone has the same access to those that are interested in it. That's a big task. That is not something that you learn overnight. And then when you add to that, our income from athletics was significantly impacted by COVID. That proved to be a big challenge. Thankfully, my predecessor had built up a good storehouse of financial support for that time period. I don't know how athletic directors who didn't have that cushion actually managed to get through it. So I am very thankful to my predecessor for that. But I mean, I'm still learning. This is year 5, and I'm still learning how to manage that budget. So that was a big one for me. I think the other thing was the biggest thing for me was because I had not been a high school coach, and because I was new to being an athletic director, the biggest thing for me was learning from my coaches what they needed to run their programs, and to try to I knew a lot of them. I had worked with a lot of them for years. And so I would like to think they already had a certain level of respect for our relationship and that kind of thing. But just being willing to ask and to learn from them was a big thing. I didn't want to come in and act like I knew exactly what I was doing, because I didn't. And so the biggest thing in that regard was just saying to my coaches, hey, if I'm not doing something right, tell me so that I can improve in that regard, and make sure I'm doing what I need to do to support you. And if I'm not, let me know that. because I don't ever want my coaches to feel like they're not supported in providing what they need to provide to their student athletes. So that I think was probably the second biggest learning curve that I had. That probably was the biggest learning curve, the financial part. It was a big thing, but I think that learning from my coaches was probably the biggest thing.
Oh, great advice, boy. Talk about the toolbox. You're giving a master class today. Let's go ahead and take a break. But before we do, if one of our listeners, and we'll do this at the end of the podcast too, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit more about, whether it's about, Gipper or Huddle or other tech or just some of the things that you do at Danville, what's the best way that they can get a hold of Aimee Harvey?
Well, you can get my contact information is on our website, which is DCHS Athletics, DCHS for Danville Community High School. You're also welcome to email me, A Harvey, Harvey, at danville.k12.in.us. I love that kind of thing, because even if you're contacting me to try to pick my brain about something, I guarantee you there's going to be something that I can pick your brain about as well.
Oh, absolutely. That's building that network. Aimee is also on LinkedIn. And for our NIAAA members, Aimee's information is in the NIAAA membership portal. Let's take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but we are going to come back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. You can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an athletic director was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also used it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to say thank you to Snap Raise. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents loved it because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Go to snapraise.com. And we want to thank Hometown Ticketing. Hometown's the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. And whether it's more support, more security, or more customization, the Hometown team is going to help you make the best online ticketing solution. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. Welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Aimee, you and I were talking during the break, and you mentioned that your school is involved in just a great program. Could you share a little bit about that with our listeners?
Sure. We are on the beginning edges of implementing the Inside Out initiative in our athletic department. I've been part of that for a couple of years now and am to the point where I'm starting to implement it with my coaching staff. It was the thing I didn't know about when I started that I wanted and was happy to come across. The state association, the Indiana High School Athletic Association, IHSAA, they have a partnership with Inside Out coaching. And so it was promoted through my state association. A couple of athletic directors that I know well and respect were involved in it as well. And so, I think I just started by being on an informational Zoom meeting or something like that, just to get more details. And that was the piece, because I knew, in having been an administrator and an assistant principal, we're always looking to provide professional development for our teachers. And so that was kind of a thing that's ingrained in me, is providing that next step for the adults in charge. And so it became a natural thing for me to want to provide that for my coaches. And Inside Out Coaching proved to be a system, or a program, if you will, that really touched on several things that are important to me, and that I think make a huge impact on our student athletes.
Again, the Inside Out program, it's nationwide, just two thumbs up, but I think everyone who's ever been involved.
Mm.
Um, as you were rolling this out, or as you had plans to roll this out, what were some of the things that you did, I guess, to ensure its success? And the extreme I'm looking at is you just did this all on your own, or you got other coaches involved, which I'm sure you did.
Yeah. So I started out by, once I started learning about it, and I knew that there were other athletic directors that were using it and that were experiencing positives as a result. I started just kind of sprinkling it into conversation. I put my personal purpose statement in the signature portion of my email, which, if you're involved with Inside Out Coaching, you know that that's kind of a big thing, is to know what your purpose is. Um, I shared information. They have a good website for athletic directors to share with district and building administration, just to kind of give a little bit of an idea of what the initiative is all about. I talked to a couple of my coaches that I kind of check in with on a regular basis to see, what their thoughts were on it. And so I kind of just tried to start sprinkling it in when I would send emails to my head coaches, when I would try to share things that would be, because I want to provide bright spots for my coaches. I want them to see that I feel like I'm always going to be learning and growing. And I want them to feel like, first of all, it's okay for you to still be learning and growing. I don't expect you that just because you've coached for 20 years, that I don't expect you to be the master of all knowledge that ever has impacted athletics. And so I just kind of started sharing it. And then after I went through the Inside Out Initiative 2.0 course, the next step is to actually get your coaches started with developing their own mission statement. Last year, I purchased a copy of the book for each of my head coaches, which it's not necessary as part of the program, but it really gives you a good picture of why this approach to coaching is so important and so impactful. And so that's kind of where we are this the fall season. My coaches went through the online creation of their purpose statement. And so now we're starting to think about, okay, what's our professional development for the winter season going to be?
Oh gosh, I love it, and I love how you're rolling it out. It's not just a one and done thing. It
Right.
keeps leading. Very cool stuff. Aimee, this has been just so cool getting to know you a little bit. We're gonna have to get you back on, but we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox, and you certainly know your way around the world of schools and athletics, but right now, we're going to take our final break here from Athletic Surveys. And when we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 items in the toolbox. At least I didn't steal that last item, but we want to hear the other two first. So let's take that final break here from Athletic Surveys, who sponsored this segment. And when we come back, we're going to see what Aimee Harvey from Danville High School puts into her new athletic director toolbox. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to thank Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys is going to connect you to that group so you can hear their concerns and hopefully address their issues. But they're also going to connect you to the 98% of your stakeholders that support your program. And having that type of positive feedback, that data, is very important, especially when you're visiting with that frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Aimee Harvey. She's the director of athletics at Danville High School, Danville, Indiana. Tremendous background in education and athletics, but right now I'm going to challenge her to send out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let her put three things in the toolbox. So, Aimee, what three items are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, we hit on a couple of those already with Gipper and with Huddle. And I think one of the tools that I would say isn't program specific as far as like software, but it is look for things that will make your life easier. Gipper, I love it. Makes my life easier. Huddle, I love it. It makes my life easier. So I'll share two additional, and these are programs that are very popular locally in the state of Indiana. One of them is Final Forms, which is a great resource to use to collect athlete registration, their physicals, parent information. I don't quote me on this, but I believe it was developed by athletic directors. And so you can tell by using the program that this has been designed by people who know what we need, what information we need, and how to make our lives easier. And so Final Forms or a program in your area that works similarly to pull all that information together. Similarly, we have a scheduling program called EventLink that I use heavily. I'm hesitant about one-stop shops because I feel like it's impossible to do everything well that is required in this role. But I do think EventLink does several things well. The scheduling piece is great. It allows you to schedule officials right there in the same program. They also now host our website, and so if you go to our website at dchathletics.com, that web page is hosted by EventLink. And so they're just pulling our schedule directly from the program. I don't have to add anything special. And so I think overall, it's just looking for those tools that are going to simplify your life because you've got 1,000 plates spinning at all times as an athletic director. And so any of those resources that are out there, look for those. And if EventLink and Final Forms and Huddle and Gipper, I think those are pretty well known nationwide, but I think they're obviously more popular in some areas. And maybe if it's not popular in your area, look into bringing it to your area, but also reach out to your fellow athletic directors and ask them, what are these tools that are going to make my job easier? Because at the end of the day, I don't think that any athletic director probably got into it to collect athlete registrations or to put together contracts and schedules. I think for the most part, we got into it for the student athletes. And if you can find those tools that will make those parts of it easier, that's going to give you more time with those student athletes and developing those relationships, and also with your coaches developing those relationships. And I know certainly for me, that's why I'm in this seat. And so anything that's going to help me, I even jotted down during that last commercial break athleticsurveys.com because that is something I need. And so I'm going to be visiting that page and because it's something that I think I can see making my life a lot easier. So that's the biggest thing that I would encourage a new athletic director. Look for those tools that are going to make life easier. And you can figure those out really easily by networking and asking your fellow ADs what they use and getting ideas that way. And don't be afraid to ask. It's okay to ask your colleagues for their input on things. Um, I think too often we try to come in and act like we know what we're doing and all of that. Hey, it's okay to be humble and ask for help. Other athletic directors want to help, so I think that that's an important piece of it.
Uh, Aimee, but so many things. I don't think I've ever had this on a toolbox segment, but I loved your theme, everything connected to that make your life easier as an AD. And you're absolutely right. The that cliche, don't work harder, work smarter. I think you just personified that. And you're absolutely right. These apps or platforms, whatever you want to call them, they're all great and they all do a job. And I'm right there with you on one-stop shop. Some of my sponsors, great product, but they're trying to do all things. And I caution them, hey, this you do this great. Keep doing it.
Right.
That's what everybody wants. Um, you've just graduated from guest to friend of the show. We're definitely gonna, when this is over, we're definitely gonna get you scheduled for some future segments. But if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain, and listeners, you got a great resource here. How do they get a hold of Aimee Harvey?
So I shared my email address. Again, that is A Harvey, AHARVEY at danville.k12.in.us. You can reach out to me by phone as well, 317-745-3929. That's 317-745-3929. You can also find my contact information on our website at dchsathletics.com.
And as we mentioned earlier, Aimee's also on LinkedIn. And for our NIAAA members, you can find her information in the membership portal. Aimee Harvey, thanks so much for sharing with us. All the best for the spring semester, I guess,
Yeah.
since people are listening to this in January. And we're definitely going to get you back on the show.
Okay. I've really enjoyed it and I'll look forward to that.
For our listeners, we look forward to having you join us again. Just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day. We share stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back and join us again on the next edition of the Educational AD Podcast. Thanks again for listening.